next movie on the list is The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey, which a lot of people have said has been a disappointment. Like, it's been considered a disappointment by a lot of people for some reason.
It was an expected journey for me, but...
It was an expected journey.
Yeah, it was expected.
It's been a long time since I've seen the Lord of the Rings movies. I think they're good movies. I really want to watch them again after seeing The Hobbit, but for someone who went in with such low expectations like myself for The Hobbit based on reviews and my previous experience, I did really think it was a lot of fun, and it was a great journey, and Peter Jackson took me back to Middle Earth, and it was great to be back in Middle Earth.
I'd say a lot for him because this guy does not like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
he doesn't like fantasy.
I like it. I think they're good movies. I'm just not.
You're not going to be like,
huge
dude,
about
let's pop it on, man. Like, what do you want to do tonight? It's Friday. Like, we're going to watch Lord of the Rings.
In 3 freaking hours.
Yeah, but it's like, why don't we live
but
here?
then that's the
That's the
only
whole
reason
point,
why you put it
Yeah,
in. Is
okay. Yeah.
You'd rather live life that way. But,
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it was another one, great honorable mention. I liked it a lot. I saw it at midnight, which kind of screwed me up. I saw it again in 48 frames with you. Just liked it actually a little bit better. It was a little hard to get used to the awkward thing.
It takes getting used to the 48 frames per second, but I actually thought it worked really well. I feel like we're in the minority there.
No,
most people don't really like it.
The best way to explain to people the idea of it, in which I noticed as the movie went along, was it was supposed to mix up because it's in 3D as well. If you watch the 48 frames, high frame rate, it's supposed to make the CG and the 3D more seamless. So that way, that they're trying to do what it looks like when you first see the movie.
Yeah.
It's really fast. But a scene when, let's say, the hobbits and Gandalf are talking to, the Goblin King and all these dudes, other movies it would look really thrown off.
Yeah.
But the way how with the 3D and the 48 frames, the higher frame rate, it looks like
it's
supposed to be there together.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like episode 1 on Blu-ray.
No, it doesn't.
But anyways, I thought I really enjoyed it the second time around. For me, the reason why I didn't was, it's the Lord of the Rings till the other, but I didn't get the Lord of the Rings feel except for the opening prologue, and you could say the last 15 minutes.
Well,
the other parts I liked it, but I had my issues. Yeah.
Well, that's because it's also a different movie. As The Hobbit's supposed to be sort of like a lighter,
it's a kid's book,
little
basically.
thing.
Well, I heard, and that was an issue. I guess one of my issues comes down to is Lord of the Rings is a little bit darker, more serious, and this is supposed to be more like a family-ish type story where it's not as dark. And I felt like
at times
Jackson tries to mix them sometimes a little too hard because he's trying to get these they're paying me money, so
they want to see another version of Lord of the Rings.
Well, I can say that before I saw The Hobbit, there was a 11-hour marathon at some participating theaters where it showed all the extended versions the weekend before this movie came out. And I can say, while I can understand why some fans could be disappointed, because sometimes you're like, oh, this is sort of similar, and this still sort of happens. I still enjoyed it, and I still found myself, engaged. Of all the books, I've only read The Hobbit, so I like that one.
So there you go.
I heard people who read the books actually like Hobbit better out.
Yeah. I'm very much looking forward to The Desolation of Smaug.
Yeah, there's
Christmas.
Yeah, and those who don't know, next Christmas is the second one. The third one's coming out that.
I'm still really curious how they're going to stretch it out to a third movie. But
yeah, because I talked to someone who's I was just talking to someone last night about, and they were saying
because the book's like 450 pages.
300 pages. And they said, I told them they're like, what are they going to do in the third movie? I'm like, it's basically going to be in between something. That's not The Hobbit. Then I'm like,
right.
Yeah, it's.
But we're going to put it under that banner. The next movie on the list is one that's on both of your lists, but not on mine. But it is Les Miserables, which is the all-singing 2 hours and 40 minutes of singing live.
Why don't you like singing?
I don't mind it. It's just
nip it in the bud.
Nip it in the bud. Which is weird because I feel like I'm more tolerant of musicals than you guys are.
Because you sing during them.
That was Across the Universe.
That was annoying as shit.
It's this big, grand musical version of the very hits. It's like one of the biggest Broadway musicals of all time.
It's an opera, really.
It is an opera, basically.
Opera?
There's I'd say 96% of the dialogue is sung. And only 4% is spoken. In between, it's
like
connecting
6 lines
songs.
of dialogue.
I don't even think 4%.
I will say
the script is pretty short.
Right.
There's an outline with he'll say this.
That was probably the easiest script to ever write because it was we already have all the songs. Let's just copy and paste it. And it's still probably gonna get nominated.
If you get nominated, it'd be like if you get soundtrack, that makes sense.
I do think it was a little long. I didn't buy the love triangle as much. I didn't really buy the fact that one look across a crowded, village, and it's I'm in love, and
man, did you not live in the time? If you saw someone, you're like, boner, love.
Yeah, there wasn't a Facebook.
Okay.
You couldn't.
Yeah, you could.
The one that blew me out of my socks was Anne Hathaway.
Catwoman.
She was just, her version of I Dreamed a Dream was the high point of the movie for me. For a movie that was like touted as being like, you're gonna cry buckets of tears, I only really got emotional during that song, because it's just so raw and so real. But and Hugh Jackman's great, and Russell Crowe I think does a pretty good job too. And yeah,
if you don't cry in any way right now, you don't have a soul. Like, you can't tear because it's 4 minutes long of just the camera, one shot on this girl just doing this song about like her whole life and what she thought it would be and what she used to think of people and what it's like, and you're like, jeez, yeah, you're like, I never thought I could feel bad for Anne Hathaway, you know? I have to see it again because it's higher on my list also because I only saw it one time and I did think it was a little long, but I like the epic thing, you know what, I did feel emotionally attached to pretty much all the characters. There's maybe one or two I didn't care for as much, but I just really liked the episode. I really connected with the story and Hugh Jackman's character and how they did everything. And I didn't care as much for King's Speech, so Tom Hooper directing this movie was a whole new thing to me. For me, you know, as I mentioned with the genre thing before with 21 Jump Street, a musical, there's two things I need. I need a story I'm interested in, did that, and I need to actually enjoy the songs. And I pretty much enjoyed all the music in this movie. I mean, there might have been one song that I was like,
Well, I really liked it too. I thought the acting, even though it was just through singing, was really good because they had to sort of act out.
Yeah.
Like even even when it wasn't a song, it was still sort of a song, and I enjoyed that. And I enjoyed the way where it was all live recorded. Like
that was really
they're
smart.
Singing, and that was really cool.
Yeah.
Like you don't really see that. Everyone's like lip sync, yeah, do
Pretty version.
and then when it stops, you do a little jig. Did you know that also Russell Crowe was in a band?
he is in a band.
Yeah.
That's why 30-odd-foot grunt.
That's why all the songs sound like rock songs.
Yeah.
He sings.
Yeah.
I know he has no vibrato in his voice, but
I
that's
liked
fine.
it though. The only time I was ever noticed, like we said, the only time in the movie where I'm like, his voice isn't as good as when him and Hugh Jackman would sing like across.
Together.
I know, it's like, a slave, and it's like, 5 years for what you did.
He's trying. I'm like, he's
trying to run. I know, it's like, you're not on a rock concert.
Voice box, and he's like,
Next movie on our list is Lincoln, Steven
Proclamation.
Spielberg's latest movie. I'm going to just start out by saying my problems and why it didn't quite make my list was, I feel like Joseph Gordon, as much as I love Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who's one of my favorite actors, I felt like his part to the movie was a bit superfluous and kind of took away from the rest of the movie. Yeah, I know I use big words.
That's not
and I
big
feel
words.
like
Small words, Joel.
it should have ended a little earlier. Like, we didn't need to see Lincoln on his deathbed. Spoiler alert.
then or Colonel Sanders fall off a horse.
Or something like that. Besides that, I feel like it's one of the best acted, written movies of the year. And those are birds. And yeah, so Daniel Day-Lewis was amazing, and Tommy Lee Jones was awesome. Everybody in the movie's really good. I felt like it was Spielberg's most restrained film, directing-wise. Like, there's not a lot of his usual, like, sweeping Spielberg shots, or people looking off in the distance in wonder at something.
Well, then, like, what's his face? John Williams. I mean, for the score, like, there's...
Oh, yeah,
It wasn't like...
I love that stuff. I mean, the movies of his I grew up on with Spielberg stuff. That's why I remember. But as getting older, there's like he isn't even doing every single movie. And this one, in some ways, it's even I forgot that it was a Spielberg movie at times.
Oh yeah,
it was very like naturally looking.
Yeah,
so
I was like, wait, Spielberg did this at the end?
This kind of goes similar with Argo in that way of like it, for me in like movies that just had like authentic look to the time that it was trying to be, and everyone just acting, costume design. You could say all of it was well done. And a movie too, it's like it's just talking for like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
And I was like really into it, and I've seen it a few times over time with different people, and
yeah,
you kind of need to see that one too more than once, just because some of the dialogue, there's some scenes where you're like, I don't get why they're talking about this.
Yeah, it took. I will say it also took getting used to the style of the movie.
Yeah,
like I didn't really get into the movie until like maybe 20-30 minutes in.
I really liked this movie. I found it interesting, you know, all the historical stuff, or at least a take on some of the historical stuff. But it was really interesting, and I enjoyed it. And the performances were really great. Like Daniel Day-Lewis, you're like, what? And then Tommy Lee Jones, you're like, aha, at the end with him.
Yeah.
And then everyone else, it's like really funny. It's like, the one from Indiana tried to shoot me.
Yeah, that's what
James Spader. Yeah.
Yeah, the humor actually. That's kinda,
it was really funny.
humor.
Yeah.
I mean, you know the end of it, but it just sort of. How it all, there's things about details of how it all came about that you're like, I didn't know this, or, you know.
Next movie is probably the best science fiction film that came out this year, which is Looper. written and directed by Rian Johnson, who I think, I'm going to call it early, I feel like he's going to be the next David Fincher or Christopher Nolan in terms of filmmakers. Just he's got such an original voice and talent. I just felt like Looper was one of the most original, exciting, and emotional science fiction movies I've seen in a long time, and it was pretty much perfect from beginning to end for me. And performances are great, action was really well done, emotion, like I said, was really well earned, and I love it.
It's the only character I always had issues with in the movie. I've seen it like 3 times now. Was Emily Blunt.
Really?
And I think partially just because it was the accent, because I know she's British.
Right.
And she was trying to use this like Southerner accent a little bit, so I was like,
well, when she yells, it kind of
it's when she would yell, and I think it's too because some of her like sassiness was kind of annoying to me. But then the movie works out because they kind of explain more of who her character is. I mean, it's one of those movies too that does that great thing. It's a sci-fi movie, but there's so much more to it. The first 30 or so minutes layer it up to set it up, and then it goes through, and it's really more of like a drama where there's action in it, but it's directed from everything else that's part of the story.
Yeah.
And it's really more just like a great intense, about 2 hours of thriller, really.
Yeah, and I'd say like the kid in it is phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
Like he's so good. Really good. Like usually I can't stand kid actors a lot of the time, but he was like probably the best. Especially at that age, he was phenomenal.
And also too, Bruce Willis. That's the other person I'd say.
Best he's been in a while.
Him in a couple outside of this and a couple other movies.
That's good.
No, I mean outside of this and I'd say a few other movies he's done recently. The past 15 years, I wouldn't say I've seen him be like, you gotta see Bruce Willis in the movie. He was good. Like
he was actually a good acting.
Like he has a character. I mean, I remember he actually this is like one of the movies he said that he was really proud to do, and like he read the script and was like, I want to do it.
Another thing is like Looper is a great movie. I feel like even if you don't like science fiction, I think you'll really like Looper because it's not really a time travel movie. That's like a plot device. It's not really what the movie's about. So it's more of a drama that asks some really serious, thought-provoking questions.
That's the reason why, and that's the movie that made me think. It wasn't trying to be like touch too much into things or left a loop-ended opening, but it made you think too. That's another part from the movie. If a movie can entertain you, but also make me think more than just watch something below for 2 hours.
Right, which gets boring.
And like I said too about the drama thing, that'd be a perk. Like if you're someone who's like, I don't like that, or.
So the next any on our list is Paul Thomas Anderson's The Master, which is probably the most polarizing film on our lists, like any of our lists this year.
Yeah,
it really is. There are people who think that the script is terribly written. They're like, it looks great, it's wonderfully acted, it's really well acted, but it's pretty incoherent. I don't think so. I think it's I only saw it once. I kind of wish I saw it more than once. But I think it is, features some of the best acting of the year. Joaquin Phoenix and Philip Seymour Hoffman and Amy Adams are all phenomenal in the movie. I was really into the story too. Like, it's not very plot driven. I will say that.
We're just like hanging out with these couple of characters for like 2+ hours. Like they're just gonna hang out. They're gonna be on a boat a lot.
Yeah, pretty much.
Go to some states. I mean, for me, it made a lot on my list because it was sort of like, it was like a 3D movie almost because I hate using, like, movie critic words, but hypnotic, is the best way to put it. Because there's times in that movie where characters just talking or having a flashback. I remember part of it has to do with there's this whole processing between them. And he has this flashback, Joaquin Phoenix says, about this girl that, was like her, like, the long-lost girl. And there's a part when she's singing to him. And you see it, and it's sort of like, everything's sort of fuzzy in the back. It's like out of focus around her, but I felt like I was laying on the ground next to her singing, and that sounds creepy, but it was like that sort of intense. And I like Paul Thomas Anderson stuff. He's sort of one of my like inspirations. It was for a long time.
He's one of my favorites too. Yeah,
this is just a lot of interesting things with dialogue and stories and characters. Lays them out. For a long time it was my like debatable #1 movie of the year. I think my only issue with it when it comes down to it. Also, another mesmerizing scene would be another weird part of the movie that I would say is really weird. Philip Seymour Hoffman sings a song called "Slow Boat to China" for like 2.5 minutes. It's one thing to be like, in any other movie, this would just be like really weird. Like he's just singing to him, just staring at him, like really. But
you're just like
you're so into it, like, and you feel everything that he is. Joaquin Phoenix, it's like I know he's not gonna run for try to get an award, but he'd be my pick for best actor of the year.
Phenomenal. So good in the movie.
And actually, Jeremy Renner was supposed to do that, but he's like,
I really could not see Jeremy Renner.
Yeah, I could see him. I could see him doing like scenes of it.
I love Jeremy Renner.
Yeah. Just to end us too. The reason why I didn't get the #1 or #2 on my list was because I liked the movie a lot. I loved it. Saw it a second time. Was still into it a lot. But the very ending to it, really the last like the last image and some of the last. I'm not really sure what it means. Because the thing is, I understand in some ways the movie doesn't have an opening or closing. It's kind of just laying out these two different ideologies of can you be someone without a master in your life and just sort of whatever your instincts make you want to do, or do you have to be mastered? Yeah. But when it comes to a closing, it kind of tries to give a closing. And on one end, I'm like, is PTA trying to say something, or am I supposed to be haunted by what this means? This character kind of looping his life around. Right. It's something that I've read some different opinions on, which helped a little bit, but that confusion drives me nuts, and I'm a guy who can understand the Terrence Malick movies.
Right, yeah. And it would be on my list if
you'd seen it.
So it will be in the revised list.
Yes. The revised list come on April.
Yeah.